It was an ordinary evening, or so I thought. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft glow through the living room window as I came home from work. I dropped my bag at the door and headed toward the kitchen to grab something to eat. My husband was out on a business trip, and my stepson, Jason, was at home, likely finishing his homework or playing video games. The house was quiet, but there was something off. It wasn't just the silence, it was the tension in the air, a quiet hum that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I shook it off, deciding it was probably just my mind wandering after a long day. But as I moved toward the hallway, the door to Jason's room was ajar, and I caught a glimpse of something I never expected to see. I don't know what I thought was going on, but it wasn't that. There he was, sitting on his bed, holding his phone. His gaze was intense, and his fingers were moving rapidly across the screen. What stood out wasn't just the secrecy in his actions, but the way he was gripping his phone like he didn't want anyone to see it. At first, I froze, my heart raced, and I felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over me. Was he watching something inappropriate? Was he hiding a secret from me or from my husband? My mind started spinning in a million different directions. How should I confront this? Was it my place to get involved? I stepped forward, trying to find a way to handle the situation without escalating it. But that's when he noticed me. His eyes shot up in panic, and his fingers fumbled with the phone. "What's going on, Jason?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm of emotions I was feeling. Jason hesitated, then quickly shoved the phone under his pillow, his face turning a deep shade of red. "Nothing. Nothing at all," he muttered, standing up awkwardly. Just messing around." Something in his tone didn't sit right with me. I could tell he was hiding something. In that moment, I wasn't just dealing with a confused teen trying to cover up his actions. I was faced with the reality that there was a secret between us, a barrier I hadn't noticed before. I didn't know what to do. The part of me that wanted to protect my family wanted to march into the room, confront him, and demand to know what was going on. But the stepparent in me hesitated. I had no idea how to navigate this. How much of a role was I allowed to play in Jason's life? How much authority did I have when it came to things like this? I tried to stay calm, but the truth was, I felt a deep sense of betrayal. I had never thought of Jason in a way that would make me question his trustworthiness. He wasn't my biological child, but I had watched him grow up, and we had built a relationship, even if it was sometimes awkward. But seeing him in that moment, guilty, cornered, and hiding something shattered the illusion of that connection. "Jason," I began again, my voice softer this time. "You know you can talk to me, right? If something's going on, if you're feeling confused or upset, you can talk to me." He stood there for a long moment, his face contorted in a way that made me wonder just how much he was struggling with. Finally, he sighed and sat back down on the bed. "It's not what you think," he said quietly, his voice small. I don't know how to deal with some stuff right now, and I didn't know who to talk to." At that moment, the air between us shifted. The tension loosened, but I still didn't know what to do with what was happening. Was this an innocent moment? Or was there something darker underneath it all? The truth was, Jason had always been distant, and there were things about his life I didn't fully understand. This moment felt like a crack in the facade, one that I wasn't prepared to handle alone. I left him there, unsure of how to proceed. I wanted to tell my husband, but I hesitated. What if it wasn't as bad as it seemed? What if I was overreacting? But if I didn't say anything, I felt like I would be betraying my role as a stepparent, someone who was supposed to care for him, even in the moments when it felt like I didn't understand him. Later that evening, Jason came to me again. This time, his eyes were softer, less defensive. "Can we talk about what happened earlier?" he asked. I nodded, inviting him to sit down. Over the next hour, Jason opened up about the struggles he was facing. It turned out that he had been dealing with some intense feelings of isolation, especially with the recent changes in our family dynamics. He had been trying to cope in ways that weren't healthy, seeking distractions from the pressure he was feeling. I listened. It wasn't easy, but I knew this was the moment that could define our relationship. The road ahead wasn't going to be simple, but I also realized something important. Infidelity, whether emotional or otherwise, didn't just appear out of nowhere. It stemmed from unmet needs, confusion, and a lack of understanding. This moment, though it had shaken me, was a reminder that family is complicated. It's full of secrets, struggles, and moments of vulnerability. And while I may not have all the answers, I knew that honesty, communication, and care could help us navigate the emotional landscape we were all facing together. In the end, I didn't have a perfect solution, but I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't a battle that would be won alone. It would require trust, support, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths together. The discovery of infidelity, or something perceived as such, often leads to an overwhelming sense of emotional betrayal. When we invest time and energy into relationships, whether with a romantic partner, family member, or a child, we do so with an inherent trust that the other party shares, that commitment. When something happens that breaks that trust, especially unexpectedly, the shock can be all-consuming. It can hit harder than anticipated because, in many cases, the individual might have believed that everything was fine, or at least stable. In a situation like the one in the story, walking in on the stepson engaged in something that felt morally or emotionally wrong was not just about the specific act itself. It was the betrayal of what seemed like a shared understanding and bond. For the person who walked in on their stepson, the sense of shock comes from not only what was witnessed, but also the emotional weight of the revelation. It wasn't just a violation of what was happening in the moment, it was the intrusion of a boundary that was never meant to be crossed. Family relationships, especially between a step-parent and a child, are fragile in their own right. The emotional investment in those bonds requires constant work to build trust and understanding. For someone to step into that space unexpectedly or without the proper context can feel like a sudden invasion, and that invasion often comes with deep feelings of hurt and confusion. When trust is broken, there's a profound sense of disbelief. The mind struggles to reconcile the behavior that's being witnessed with the identity of the person who's committed to being a part of your life. You think you know someone, and in an instant, something happens that calls into question everything you thought was true. For the step-parent, there's the added complexity of navigating an emotional bond that's already layered with uncertainties. A biological parent's relationship with a child is often more naturally defined, but the step-parent's role is constantly being negotiated. There's always the lingering feeling of not quite being enough, not fully being part of the family unit, and not always knowing where you stand in relation to the other person. In such an emotional context, witnessing something that feels like a betrayal amplifies those insecurities. The emotional impact of betrayal in this scenario goes beyond the immediate sense of shock. It's the emotional confusion that follows. For the person who witnesses the act, the natural reaction is to want to confront the individual involved. Yet, in situations of betrayal, especially when it's unexpected, confrontation is often complicated by the conflicting emotions that arise. You might feel anger, confusion, hurt, and even a sense of guilt for not having noticed the issue earlier. You want answers, but you don't want to make things worse by overreacting. This internal turmoil makes it incredibly difficult to act in a way that's calm and composed, even though you're trying your best to hold it together. There's also the emotional weight of wondering if something deeper is at play. The sense of betrayal can become a vortex, spiraling you into a series of what-ifs. What if this act was the tip of the iceberg? What if there were other secrets or actions taking place that had gone unnoticed? The emotional betrayal doesn't just end with what was witnessed. it opens up a larger fear that there's something fundamentally broken in the relationship. This often brings out the more complex emotions of fear and anxiety about what lies ahead. When trust is broken, it's not always easy to see the path forward. It's not clear if the bond can be repaired, or if the foundation of the relationship is irreparably damaged. Ultimately, emotional betrayal is about feeling exposed and vulnerable. It's about realizing that the safety you thought you had in a relationship was an illusion, and you are left to confront an emotional vulnerability that you weren't prepared for. The shock that comes with discovering infidelity or an emotionally hurtful act is not just about the immediate hurt, it's about the deep sense of betrayal that shakes the very core of the relationship. It forces you to question your place in the dynamic and wrestle with emotions you didn't anticipate experiencing. Family dynamics are often delicate, shaped by years of shared experiences, expectations, and emotional investments. When a family is blended, as in the case of a stepparent and stepson relationship, those dynamics become even more intricate and layered. A stepparent comes into the picture with a pre-established family structure where emotional bonds have already been formed between biological parents and their children. For the stepparent, the path to forming a genuine and lasting relationship with their stepchildren is often fraught with challenges as they navigate their place in a family that may not fully embrace them or see them as an equal. At the same time, the children may be grappling with their own complex feelings about their new family member, which may include resentment, confusion, or a sense of displacement. In the story of walking in on the stepson engaged in an emotionally or morally questionable act, the complicated family dynamics are highlighted. The stepparent's role in this context is inherently ambiguous, sometimes seen as an outsider, sometimes as an authority figure, and sometimes as a source of emotional support. The emotional attachment to the child can range from mild camaraderie to deep love, but it often lacks the same foundational security and unconditional bond that exists between biological parents and their children. The stepparent, in many cases, is still trying to figure out how to balance the role of caregiver, disciplinarian, and friend, all while being mindful of the fact that they aren't the child's biological parent. This sense of not fully fitting in or not having an unquestioned authority can cause frustration and even resentment in both parties. In situations where trust is broken, such as discovering the stepson engaging in behavior that feels like a betrayal or morally wrong, the family dynamic is tested even further. A stepparent, in particular, may feel like they are walking a fine line between protecting the family, maintaining their relationship with their partner, and dealing with the child's emotions. The stepson, who may have been hiding something or dealing with internal struggles, likely feels a heightened sense of confusion and isolation as well. He might be torn between his loyalty to his biological parents, his desire to form a meaningful bond with the stepparent, and the pressures he's facing in his personal life. In many ways, he may not know how to act toward his stepparent or how to navigate the complex web of emotions surrounding his family's evolving structure. Moreover, the stepparent's discovery of this betrayal or something perceived as a betrayal can send shockwaves through the entire family. The stepparent is not only confronted with the immediate issue at hand, but they are also forced to consider their role in the family's emotional ecosystem. How do they approach the situation without overstepping boundaries or alienating the child even further? The emotional attachment that may have been developing with the child could be called into question, as the betrayal creates a wall between the two parties. The stepparent may wonder if they have been too naive, too trusting, or if they have missed subtle signs of emotional distress that the child might have been experiencing. On the other side, the biological parent, if involved, also finds themselves in a difficult position. They may have a pre-existing bond with their child, and their relationship with the stepparent may be strained as a result of the discovery. The child's behavior could put the biological parent in a compromising spot, as they may feel torn between supporting their child, maintaining family unity, and addressing the issue at hand. The family dynamics shift once again, as the parents may struggle to find a way to address the situation without further complicating the relationships that have already been tested. The stepparent, in particular, is often left in a state of emotional limbo. They are not always fully part of the family unit and are left grappling with the emotional weight of wanting to be supportive while respecting their boundaries. The discovery of betrayal or questionable behavior can trigger feelings of inadequacy or insecurity in the stepparent. There may be a lingering fear that they will never be fully accepted as part of the family, or that they have overstepped in their role as a disciplinarian or emotional support figure. In a blended family, where emotional bonds are still in the process of being solidified, these moments of tension highlight just how fragile those relationships can be.